Thank you all for coming out today, despite the weather here at the last minute. It got pretty hairy out there, but I appreciate you all coming here today. My name is Justin Nigro, last name spelled N-I-G-R-O, and I staff the We Are One coalition, and I'm pleased today to be here and to be joined by employees and retirees of the City of Chicago and Chicago Public Schools to announce the forming of a new coalition, the We Are One Chicago Union Coalition, uniting to protect retirement security for city employees and retirees. We will hear today from 7 working and retired men and women. These are teachers, firefighters, nurses, police, other city employees and retirees. These are the types of public servants that make up our group, and you'll be hearing their stories today. We'll hear about their service to the public, oftentimes under dangerous and difficult circumstances. We'll hear about how they anchor their communities and their neighborhoods and how they improve them. And we'll hear that they don't receive Social Security and why their pensions are their life savings, their bedrock for dignity and security in retirement. And we'll be carrying that message loud and clear in one united voice to the state capitol on Wednesday when we rally in the rotunda before the governor and lawmakers assembled there today. We will have limited time for questions at the end, so I'd ask that you save questions until the end, and I'll help to facilitate responses from our speakers and our labor leaders present here today. So without further ado, why don't we get started with our first speaker, Jim Gochi. Right behind you.
Greetings, my name is James Gochi, that's G-O-C-H-E-E. I have been a Chicago police officer for 11 years, with a career of 19 years as a law enforcement officer. I'm here today to discuss how Mayor Rahm Emanuel's pension reform bill will affect myself, my family, and the countless police officers that serve with me in this great city. I've been a working police officer my whole career, having well over 2,100 arrests while spending countless hours seeing through to the end cases involving dangerous criminals in one of the most violently plagued police districts in the city of Chicago. I have done what my supervisors, the people, and the mayor of this great city have asked of me, at the cost of my wits, my physical health, and the precious time that I could and should have spent with my family and loved ones. I was seriously injured in a squad car accident in 2009, then was shot in the line of duty the following year, 2010. Through it all, I went back to my district, my tactical unit, without ever complaining about what my future might hold or the future of the pension plan that was promised for me and my fellow officers the day we came on the job. One could argue that this job, this career, is the one that I chose. However, when was the last time a politician, a news reporter, a civilian, ever had to dodge a bullet fired at them from a gang member or drug dealer? Ever resolve conflicts while one side loves you while the other hates you? Or be called upon to face down protesters who would rather light you on fire than have a peaceful protest? These are the same people who feel that such a person, a police officer, who sacrifices his life so that others may have some peace, is undeserving of such a reward at the end of his or her career. There has to be a light at the end of the tunnel, Mr. Emanuel. This job is tough, and we understand that yours is too. However, when you dial 911, yourself and every citizen this job is tough, and we understand that yours is too. However, when you dial 911, yourself and every citizen expects something that will protect them come from the other end of that phone call. With your pension reform bill, Mr. Mayor, you will have me work harder and longer, exhausting more hours at work, away from my family and loved ones. I understand that the pensions crisis took years and a deliberate non-funding approach to get us where we are today. We, however, should not be punished for the failed custodial acts of one or men who so selfishly refuse to fund our pension, while they now are enjoying their own pensions upon retirement. We know that it will not be easy, Mr. Mayor, but first and foremost, as the police of the city, we have put the people, the politicians, the safety of every building and infrastructure paramount in our lives. We now ask that you be responsible where so many have failed and meet the city's obligation and fund our pension. I would also like to add that I have faithfully and religiously paid my 9% to the pension fund each month since I came on the job. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Patricia Boughton, and my last name is B-O-U-G-H-T-O-N, and I am a Chicago public school teacher. I have taught for the last 20 some odd years, give or take a few. I've taught every grade from preschool to high school. It's people like myself and my colleagues that I'm standing here to talk in behalf of today, our pensions. When I first started teaching, I was young, and I didn't really think about the pension very much, to be honest with you. But as I became older, and I got more responsibilities in my life, I began to make plans for my life. And of course, in making those plans, I had to take into account pensions as well. I found out teachers do not receive Social Security benefits. Most of us depend upon these pensions for our livelihoods. I'm a widow, so that means that I am working alone. I don't have a husband or anybody like that to help me. So when the mayor and politicians say, well, we're going to cut pensions, they are really affecting people like myself in a dramatic way. Because if that is the only income that I have coming in, then it affects my quality of life in that I can't do the things that I'd like to do. For example, because of my age and some of my infirmities, I have to pay people to come in to help me do keep up my property, cut my grass, trim my bushes. These are things that people don't really think about, but they are things that come out of our funds, our incomes. I pay taxes, I pay water bills, I pay sewage bills. All of these things come from an income that the governor and the mayor are talking about what we ought to cut. We work hard for our money. We pay, as the officer said, we paid our 9% faithfully. And it's like any other bill or anything else that anyone else has to pay. We earned this money. And we should not be penalized because the politicians in this city refused to live up to their obligations to their pensioners. I keep saying that I feel that we've been robbed, that someone is stealing from us. Because if I give you money, or if you give me money to do something with, to put away for you, and I spend it on something else, and then when you come to me later on to say, can I get my money back? And you tell me, I tell you, I don't have it. How would you feel? Because that's really what's happening to us today. I have friends who are teachers, many of them are retired now, and some people are struggling because of health issues and other things that are going on in their lives. But we all depend upon our pensions, and we cannot afford to have our benefits cut because people in Springfield are not doing what they are supposed to do, what they are charged to do. Sorry, I was trying to. Okay, also, I think, is my time up?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, my name's Tom Ruane, R-U-A-N-E. I'm a fireman in Chicago, obviously, South Side. For the last 34 years, basically. And I'm signed up to retire, hopefully, at the end of this year. One of the main reasons I'm retiring is it's a young man's job. Physically, I think I'm a little bit beat up. A couple of years ago, we had a fire on the south side, and myself and a young fireman got trapped in the attic. Things do happen in fires. Both of us ended up intubated and sent out to Loyola Hospital in the burn unit. Thankfully, we were both able to come back to work and recover. Came back to our employment. I ended up with a new hip a year later, which I attribute to that fire. I've had 13 stitches in my face from being punched by a felon out on parole. I've had a ACL reconstruction. And the bottom line is I think it's time. It's time to go and get younger people in there in that job. Same thing, I paid my money into the pension, and the employment contract was that I would receive a pension. We're no heroes, believe me. I know heroes. I've known a lot of them. Very thankful to meet a lot of real heroes. If they're going to break an employment contract, how about we start with the Skyway or the parking meters?
Good morning. My name is Louise Bates Spencer. That's BATES-SPENCER. I am 81 years old and a member of Aspen Retirees Chapter 31. I worked for the City of Chicago Department of Health for 16 years and retired in 1998. I was an audio-vision technician for many years in parochial schools, daycare, and nursery schools. I screened children for hearing and vision problems that might affect their learning and require medical attention. Later, I did the same work in the city health clinic known as Westtown. I paid my share into the pension every pay period under the promise that it would be matched and that my pension would be there. To make sure I kept my end of the deal, they took it. They took it. It was deducted from my paycheck before the check came to me. They made sure I paid into the pension. But all the time they took my share, the city didn't pay its share. Now that they have spent my share and their share, they want to blame us, the retirees, instead of putting the blame where it goes and tell the people what they did with our pension dollars. Last year, my pension was less than $18,000. This year, the monthly amount I received is even less because Mayor Rahm Emanuel raised the amount retirees like me must pay for health insurance coverage. Out of the $18,000, my husband and I must pay our health insurance, prescription drugs, mortgage, property taxes, homeowners insurance, food, utilities, lawn care, and you name it. I am fortunate to have a small Social Security check that I earned before going to the City of Chicago. As you know, city employees like me were not eligible to earn Social Security credits for the city work. It is extremely difficult on the little I get now. To take a pay cut year after year is unfathomable. To all the politicians hollering about our pensions, I say to them, let's get real. The public needs to be told the truth. The politicians didn't pay their share. While we earn our pension, we work for it, we pay for it, and it is our livelihood. Now it's like throwing seniors to the wolves. All the cuts they want to levy are against seniors, the most vulnerable of society. And the rich, they give all the credits. I am appalled at our elected officials. And I want to leave you with the words of Alexandra, Mary, Margaret, and Kunda. She said, respect the old when you are young. Help the weak when you are strong. Confess the fault when you are wrong. Because one day you will be old, weak, and wrong.
Hello, my name is Guadalupe Alcacer. I'm a registered nurse.
What's your last name for us, please?
Alcazar. And I'm a public health nurse for the City of Chicago. I conduct assessments on pregnant women and their children up to age 1. I assess their medical status as well as their social status, their social needs, and refer them to necessary services so that they can have the healthiest pregnancy possible and in the end have a healthy infant. My program, the Maternal Child Health Program for the City of Chicago, prevents infant morbidity and mortality. After providing these services to the city, I think that all of us, once we become older, are depending on the city to also take care of us through our pension that we have contributed to from our very first paycheck. Once I retire, I know I am depending on that. And at that time, I will have fairly young children who will also still be depending on this pension. I implore the mayor to listen to what we're saying and take into consideration our needs also. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Al Gianfrancisco, Gianfrancisco. I am proud to say that I have served the City of Chicago for 12 and a half years so far. I took this job in 2000. I'm continuing on here, ma'am. I started off in 2001 as a parking enforcement aide. I knew when I was first hired that I was not going to make a whole lot of money, but I knew the city would provide me with a living wage and a decent retirement. During my time of working, I looked into the pensions, and with the looming cuts coming, I'm not so sure about that decent retirement. My work for the city has not been easy. In January of 2011, while patrolling near 37th and Kedzie, I was blindsided by two people who attacked me. I cried out for help, but by the time help came, the damage was done. I ended up with a concussion, a fractured orbital bone, and bruised ribs. I was off of work for 2 months. In December 2011, I accepted the position of detention aide with the Chicago Police Department. Again, I knew I was not going to get rich doing this job, but I knew I was going to make a living wage and have a decent retirement. I worked the graveyard shift on the south side in the 4th District. At times this job can be strenuous, dangerous, handling men and women when they get arrested because they don't want to be processed. I have no intentions of leaving my great city, and I plan to retire from the job that I currently have. My message is simple. Legislatures, please don't blindside me with another attack. My co-workers and I have paid our fair share into the pension system and are willing to work to do more. But we will not, we cannot accept another unfair and unconstitutional pension reform bill that will have seen other pension systems in Illinois. There is a way to achieve fair and constitutional pension reform. Negotiate with my union, SEIU Local 73. Thank you.
My name is Helen Ramirez Odell. I hyphenated. It's RAMIREZ-ODELL. I'm a registered nurse. I didn't work in the hospitals long enough to get my 40 quarters for Social Security. Instead, I went into the Chicago Public Schools in my mid-20s and stayed there for about 40 years, serving children from kindergarten through high school, doing the best I could to meet their health needs, just as all the nurses and other clinicians do now. I retired in 1969, and I rely greatly on my pension, not only for myself, but for members of my family. I have several people in my family who have chronic illnesses or are disabled, and the disabilities range from mild to profound. These family members rely on me for chauffeuring. My gas bills are heavy, and I take them for outings in my community. They love the restaurants, the haircuts, the manicures, other services, movies. The Those outings mean a lot to them. Those are the little things. I also have to help out with rent and housing expenses. I pay for mental health therapy, which is not covered. I help pay for drugs when they don't have enough to do it. If my cost of living is reduced on my pension, or if my own health benefits are reduced so that I have to pay hundreds more each month just to keep my own health benefits, it's going to make a profound difference in what I'm able to do with my family. First, the outings will be reduced. If they go and I have to reduce the help that I give for their medication, they're going to end up in the emergency room. So I don't want that to happen. And I'm not the only caregiver. We know a large percentage of people like me in America have heavy caregiving duties, expectations. So I expect the mayor of Chicago and my state representative and state senator to honor the guarantees that we have for our pension. Like the other people said, I never missed a payment. I put every penny into it that I was supposed to. This was a contract they have with us, and it is wrong to blame us for wanting what is due us. When I have planned my life, I waited until past retirement age to retire because I knew I needed the pension payments for myself and my family. So I will be going to Springfield with my brothers and sisters in Chicago Teachers Union and We Are One Coalition, and I'm going to let my representatives know that I expect them to do what they have promised to do for many years, and I will not forgive them if they renege on it.
That's a good point of clarification, you started working in '69?
No. I retired when I was 69, but
when
I
you were
started.
69.
Yeah, I retired in 1969, and I was 69.
You retired in 1969?
No, I retired I'm a little nervous for this speech. I retired in 2011.
Got it. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did I mess that up?
Here we go.
Thank you, Colin, and thank you to our 7 speakers here. Like I said at the start, we have some time for questions here at the end.
Jackie Sharkey come up for a minute? Jesse Sharkey come up?
Sure, that's fine, Jesse.
I don't know if you're aware of this, but State Senator Cullerton is holding news conferences this hour to talk about financial legislative priorities for the session, including your issue, which is pensions and the contract. And this is what he says. He says, quote, I look forward to sitting down with your union, just as he did with statewide teachers, to come up with a pension reform compromise we can all support. Don't you rejoin me to that?
We'd welcome a chance to talk with legislative leaders. But we'd like to remind Senator Cullerton, who has attacked our pensions in the newspaper, that this is actually what Chicago looks like. The heart and soul of the city, people who are in the neighborhoods whose retirement security, the income they get from those retirements, keep the city services alive, make our city, are the blood and muscle of the city, are right here. And actually, part of the purpose for having this news conference like this is to announce that we intend to have a unified front, and that it's not really just about the teachers, but it's about all the people who perform public services and demanding justice from our elected officials, so that we do things like raise the question about there being close some of the tax loopholes, stop making the pension cuts such that the Ty Fainers, the Bruce Rowners, people who have very, very generous retirements of their own and who manage hedge funds have every advantage, while the people who actually do hard work in the city every day bear the brunt of all the cuts. That's what we need to reverse.
Do you think there's enough? The report talks about various revenue ideas like the resident tax, the sales tax on services, the transaction tax, city income tax. Some of those have been ruled out, specifically by Mayor Mandel, the city income tax on yet he campaigned on the idea of the sales tax, the ROM tax, the sales tax of services. Which of these ideas do you favor and are you pushing? If you just put out a menu like this.
Well, first of all, Ron should make up his mind, because at some points, the mayor has talked about, the need to be responsible with government and to fund its priorities. And we actually think the people who do the work in the city should be a priority. And that we can't simply solve every problem on the backs of retirees or the people who do the work. So there needs to be conversation about revenue. We should talk about tax fairness. We should talk about closing loopholes. We should talk about people who really make $200,000 a year or more, paying their fair share in our society. And I think those are some of the kinds of things. I'd like to let other people decide.
Well, are you willing to meet him halfway? I mean, he's saying that he acknowledges that revenue is part of it, but he won't discuss which revenue until you have the quote reform, which is cuts from you folks.
Well, we've made our position very clear that having a discussion about, having a discussion about what happens in the pensions, what happens with retirement security, is contingent on also having a conversation about there being a commitment to having revenue, and obviously we're willing to talk with the elected officials, but we're not willing to just be the butt of their attacks. And so I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Firefighter Roy, you want to come back up? You take a couple questions? Or not? Is that okay?
You were good.
Is that okay? if you
We
could,
liked you about the parking.
yeah, if you could, that seemed like a common sense idea, and I just wondered if you, because you walked off as you said it, I just wondered if you could maybe bring that up again, and from your perspective.
About the parking meters and the
Yes.
driveway,
You're off mic.
Tell them about Ashland Avenue.
obviously, you want to break a contract, why don't you start there? That's where the big money is. I'm not an accountant.
Not the pension.
Yeah, what else I can say there? It's just that's the age-old story of politics, I guess.
What do you mean?
Would you mind if I help Tom out here for a second? Let me step up at one time. I'm Tim O'Brien. I'm the Director of Public Relations for the Chicago Firefighters Union. Tom was brought here today to put a human face on the fire department, not to discuss politics. Tom's story is similar to hundreds and thousands of firefighters who bear the burden of the work, who put out fires when it's 30 below zero and when it's 105 degrees out. Tom's the common face story. He's our poster child of what happens when you work hard for 30 years, 34 years, and you give everything you have 100% of the job. And now on your way out the door, the mayor says, I've decided I'm going to change the game. Me and my billionaire buddies no longer want to live up to the agreement that we've offered you for 30 years. Tom's not our politician. He doesn't deserve those questions. Local 2 deserves those questions. Our legislative Dan Fabrizio will answer those questions. The Associated Firefighters of Illinois will answer those questions. But Tom is our poster child. This man, in my eyes, is a hero. He's done everything he's supposed to do for 34 years. And now he wants to move on with his life while he's busted up with his new hip, being burnt, and you're being told, too bad for you. Go to get a job as a Walmart greeter. I don't care about you. Shame on the city.
That's right.
How many do you expect?
Tim O'Brien or for Jesse Sharkey then on that note. You guys have laid out revenue, at least the Chicago Teachers Union has laid out some different revenue options. You want that to be part of the discussion. At the same time, it's unavoidable that the mayor's office or Cullerton's office is going to bring up cuts and changes to benefits when you come to the table. Is there anything in the neighborhood of cuts or changes that you're going to discuss if you get some revenue?
We're going to have to look at what is actually the table. I mean, one of the things that we've been very clear about is that there were a series of cuts that were made in the downstate pensions, which if they were applied to Chicago, which seems like that's the political mood at this point, would mean about a loss of 1/3 of people's retirement income. 1/3. And that's in the downstate version is attached to no meaningful revenue reforms. And I don't know where Cullerton's coming from. My guess is that since he was involved in that mix, he's looking for something similar. That's not a starting point we're willing to accept. There needs to be some meaningful conversations about revenue. If there is, there's conversations to have, and I'm not going to have a public negotiation with Cullerton in front of the news floor about that. But of course, we actually want to make sure that people's retirements are there and not bankrupted. But I think that people here have been extremely clear that everyone who's up here who has a retirement security account, a retirement contract, has made their payments religiously. They've paid between 9 and 10% every 2 weeks when they've gotten a paycheck. The people who have not lived up to their end of that bargain are elected officials who have borrowed against those accounts, who haven't paid into those accounts. And so now we're being asked, do we promise in advance to sort of make cuts if they will finally live up to their part of the bargain? And the question to that has to be, we'll always talk, but don't sit here and ask us what sacrifices we're willing to make when, frankly, we've lived up to our bargain, and now it's time for them to live up to theirs.
And the mayor's argument to that is that if we start talking about revenue first, you'll never get the concessions that he believes they need to get you halfway. And you say what to that?
I said the mayor should talk to his friend Bruce Rauner and ask what concessions Bruce Rauner is willing to make.
What do you mean by that?
Please clarify that, because I'm not sure what you meant either.
No, what I mean is that there are a number of hedge fund billionaires who have been extremely vocal about the need to cut retirement security for public servants. Many of whom, by the way, in their hedge fund life, have made a lot of profits off managing pension funds. Virtually all of whom have very, very generous retirement accounts of their own. I'd happily trade pensions with Bruce Rauner. And yet the mayor seems to have his policy objectives driven by the concerns about what that group wants, not what the heart and soul of Chicago needs. That's right. That's right.
Are there any of the revenue ideas that you put on the table, Jesse, that you would prefer over another?
I guess I might as well just stay up here. Look, we're going to have some real conversations about revenue ideas.
Which of the ones that you threw out there as a salad bar to pick from, which one of those do you favor the most, and do you think is the most lucrative and the most reasonable, politically doable?
Well, I think a good place to start would be closing tax loopholes. There are many of them.
That's the smallest item, though.
Well, it depends on how you count. On a statewide level, we think that there's some significant money there. That would be a place to start. We think that there are a number of areas where there's some significant, opportunity. Like, for example, many luxury services in the city aren't taxed at all. I mean, we'd like to see luxury services taxed. We think that's a place that you can start.
What's a luxury to you?
What's a luxury? People who spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on services and have those services done tax-free. But look, I actually don't want to get into this negotiation. I want to. I think I've been clear. I think we've been fairly clear about, that this is a conversation that's going to have to take place in the future in a serious way, and we're willing to have that conversation.
So the question for Jesse or any other union person up there, I know there's two, I don't see anything else. What's the status of talks with the mayor's office or Cullerton? Is anybody actually sitting down and discussing this stuff, or is it all press conference versus press conference?
I can give you a brief summary of what we're doing. The Chicago Firefighters Union and the Associated Firefighters of Illinois, who are separate but work together, similarly as we are one Chicago working together, have been working for the entire 2+ years of the mayor's term in office. They have brought negotiations to him. They have been willing to negotiate. He has not accepted any type of answers. I know our legislative team has worked diligently. Our legislative team has actually somewhat moved into Chicago while they are in session. I'm sorry, they moved into Springfield when they are in session, only to have no answer from the other side. And it's my belief, this is not the belief of my entire union, this is my personal belief, Tim O'Brien, I don't think the mayor is interested in solving the pension crisis. I think the mayor is more interested in letting everything go to 401ks so his friends like Bruce Rauner and all the hedge fund managers can make billions more. while we wind up making less, they wind up making more. That's my opinion, and my opinion only. Okay? I want to make that crystal clear.
So I think we're running short on time now. Maybe we can take one more. But
Just one more.
One more.
I mean, can anyone, either a union official or a worker, can they talk about, we're in the middle of an election year. What does this mean for candidates who are running for state legislature, for instance, this year, for re-election or election? Can you sort of size it up for me? Is this the issue that will make or break them?
Well, again,
go for it. You may speak.
Excuse me, from my perspective, yes. Yes, it is. One of the things I wanted to mention that I failed to mention the first time is the effect of this on the black middle class in our city. Many African American people in the middle class are public sector workers. We're the postal workers, we're teachers, we're bus drivers, we're firefighters, we are police officers. And when you start talking about making cuts, whether it's to our retirees or to our current workers, you're talking about some major economic disadvantages in the African American community in the city. And any legislator, as far as I'm concerned at least, who is in favor of this is not working in the best interest of my community.
Now, what about the future of Brown and Daniel? Will you stand for re-election in just over a year?
Well, I'm only speaking for myself, I'm not speaking on behalf of the CTU.
You want to talk about the election campaigns for him?
I'm not the legislative leader, and I am not in charge of our legislative committee. We have a legislative leader, and I know he's very willing to talk with the General Assembly and talk with the mayor, and we'll see where that goes. I mean, it's kind of unfair to ask a public relations director what our legislative committee will do while they're not in the room, and it's unfair to ask me to speak for them.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out whether you think there'll be a major political backlash to Brown and Daniel in the election coming up in the year.
I can't answer that. I mean, you know, your guess is as good as mine. Nobody knows what tomorrow holds.
I'm going to go on a limb here. I think it's safe to say that Brown Emanuel will not be getting the endorsement of the Chicago Teachers Union. You do that already.
Okay, again, thank you all for your time.